Boy hugs and high fives. Here's another report from Gabriels fire. Days after at least a dozen crosses were forcibly removed from churches, China formally protested a United States report on its lack of religious freedom. Now a proposal has surfaced to ban crosses entirely from the rooftops of churches in Zhejiang, one of China's most Christian provinces. In March, a Chinese bishop reported that the government was finally halting a campaign which has removed hundreds of crosses from China's Jerusalem, the coastal city of Wenzhou. But stories of more removals continued to surface. The Chinese government now says it won't stop the campaign until 2016, according to China Aid, which has closely tracked the 3 rectifications and 1 demolition campaign. In fact, officials have proposed a new rule that would prevent future crosses from topping churches. According to the Associated Press, a draft of rules on religious structures released by government agencies this week says the crosses should be wholly affixed to a building facade and be no more than 1/10 of the facade's height. The symbol also must fit with the facade and the surroundings, the proposal says. The draft does not provide the rationale for the proposal. In a thorough report, the New York Times links to the text of the draft regulation and notes its precision. For example, crosses on the facades of Catholic churches are to have a height-to-width ratio of 1 to 0.618. For Protestant crosses, the ratio should be 3 to 2. Last week, Zhejiang officials removed 12 crosses from churches in the city of Lishui, burning one when a removal machine malfunctioned. On Monday, the Chinese national government filed a diplomatic protest over this year's annual report by the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, which labeled Chinese religious freedom violations severe and systematic. This report is full of political bias and makes arbitrary and unfounded criticism of China, Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Hua Chunying told news outlets in the daily briefing. She said that Chinese citizens had ample religious freedom under law. But USAID's 2015 report noted that more than 400 Chinese churches in Zhejiang have had their crosses removed or torn down in the past year, and in some cases those who protested were arrested or imprisoned. The report also states that China designated some house churches cults and then issued a directive to eradicate them over the next 10 years. One example, more than 100 Christians were arrested during a single raid on a house church last year in Foshan City. People of faith continue to face arrests, fines, denials of justice, lengthy prison sentences, and in some cases, the closing or bulldozing of places of worship, the report stated. Based on the alarming increase in systematic, egregious, and ongoing abuses, USAID again recommends China be designated a country of particular concern. USAID recommended that China be relisted as a top offender, along with countries such as Myanmar and North Korea. Meanwhile, China Aid's 2014 report, released last month, said that persecution in China increased 150% over the course of last year, with nearly 3,000 detained and close to 1,300 sentenced. In 2014, Christians and practitioners of other faiths in China experienced the harshest persecution seen in over a decade, the report stated, noting the removal of crosses and eradication of house churches as a rising concern. China Aid also added its unease over China's campaign to assimilate Christianity into Chinese culture. They've changed Buddhism. They've reshaped it in a lot of different ways. China Aid Vice President Cody Ness told court it's similar to what they're trying to do with Christianity. Open Doors offered a different take in its assessment of the good news trends of 2014. It noted, China is still undecided about how to deal with the church. This is actually good news. With the attacks on scores of churches, with some buildings being destroyed and about 300 crosses being removed, in the heartland of Wenzhou, many assume that China is setting its face against Christianity, but there is a surprising weight of counter-evidence that suggests a vigorous debate is going on in the Chinese government over whether it should restrict or free the church. If Christianity can sound, look and be Chinese enough, we might just see the church continuing to be invited to play a fuller role in the building of the new China.